When God places an anointing on your life, it is not always comfortable. It does not always feel safe. In fact, a dangerous anointing means the hand of God rests on you in such a way that it disturbs the enemy, shakes the atmosphere, and challenges the ordinary. Some people think being anointed means popularity, applause, or ease. But the reality is, when you carry a dangerous anointing, you will carry a target on your back. Yet that target is also proof that heaven has marked you for something greater. There are hidden signs, undeniable proofs that you are not just walking with purpose, but walking with an anointing that threatens darkness. And if you can identify these signs in your life, you will realize that what you are carrying is not common. It is divine. When attacks come without reason, it can be one of the most confusing and painful seasons of your life. You find yourself asking, what did I do wrong? Why are they against me? Why does it feel like the ground is shaking under my feet when I haven't provoked anything? That confusion is natural, but it is also a sign that the battle is not about what you have done, but about what you carry. The presence of unprovoked attacks is a spiritual marker that you are carrying something valuable that the enemy wants to silence before it grows. You can often tell the weight of your calling by the level of opposition that comes against you. It is never about the small things. Hell does not waste energy on people who are not a threat. When you notice that your name is under attack, your character is being questioned, or doors are shutting for no clear reason, it is not always because you failed. It is often because your destiny has been identified by the kingdom of darkness. That resistance is confirmation that you are stepping into a realm that makes the enemy nervous. Sometimes these attacks will come through people closest to you, the ones you never expected. Suddenly, relationships shift, words are twisted, and betrayal shows up out of nowhere. It hurts because it feels personal, but in reality, it is spiritual. The enemy uses whoever is available, and oftentimes those closest to your heart can be the very ones the enemy tries to use to break you. But rather than taking it as rejection, you must see it as redirection. There will also be attacks on your resources. Finances dry up. Opportunities fall through. Unexpected bills rise, and pressure builds in ways you never saw coming. This is not always about poor management or bad timing. Many times, it is about the enemy trying to make you doubt the provision of God. If he can get you to believe you are abandoned, he can make you abandon your faith. These attacks are not proof that you are forgotten, but proof that you are carrying something he wants to frustrate before it manifests. Even your mind will come under attack without reason. Thoughts of doubt, discouragement, and fear will rise out of nowhere. You will wake up with heaviness that doesn't make sense, or anxiety about situations that haven't even happened. This mental warfare is designed to wear you down so that you surrender your purpose before you ever step fully into it. But the presence of the battle is actually an indicator that your mind is a battlefield because of the destiny attached to it. The attacks may also touch your health. Out of nowhere, your body feels weak, illnesses appear, or fatigue overwhelms you. It feels unfair, especially when you are trying to serve God faithfully. But those health battles are another tactic of the enemy to slow you down, to distract you, and to drain your energy. Yet, even in these moments, you must recognize that it is not the absence of God's hand, but evidence that what you are carrying is weighty enough to stir resistance. Attacks can also come in the form of delays. You pray, you wait, you prepare, and yet nothing seems to move. Doors stay shut. Promises feel far off. People misunderstand the stillness and think nothing is happening in your life. But in reality, the delay is not because you are unworthy. It is because the enemy is trying to block what God has already released. The very delay you hate is often proof of the destiny that has already been set in motion. In seasons like these, even your emotions betray you. You feel unexplainable loneliness, heaviness, or a sense of rejection that no one else sees. The attacks weigh you down because they often appear in invisible ways that others cannot understand. That loneliness can tempt you to believe you are walking the path alone. But in truth, the very isolation you are feeling is a strategy of the enemy to separate you from the encouragement of others. Because if you ever realize the authority you carry, the attacks will no longer have power over you. There will also be attacks in the form of distractions, small fires that pull your focus, meaningless arguments, or unnecessary conflicts. These may look insignificant at first, but they are designed to pull your eyes away from your assignment. The more distracted you become, the less effective you are in carrying out what God has placed inside of you. And when attacks come for no reason, distractions often multiply because the enemy knows if he cannot destroy you, he can at least delay you. Through all of this, one truth remains: the more unexplainable the attacks, the greater the evidence that your life has been marked for something uncommon. The attacks do not define your worth, but they reveal your weight. The very reason you are fought without reason is because your existence itself is the reason. What you carry cannot be ignored, so resistance rises without warning, without logic, without explanation, because the anointing on your life carries a danger to the darkness. There comes a season in life when isolation becomes unavoidable. People you thought would always stand by you suddenly drift away. The phone grows silent, the support system you leaned on seems to vanish, and you find yourself walking through days that feel quiet, lonely, and stripped of the comfort of familiar voices. It is not punishment, but preparation. Isolation is never random. It is a spiritual classroom where lessons are taught that cannot be learned in the crowd. It is in this silence that you begin to hear the whispers of God in a way that would have been drowned out by noise. Isolation often feels like rejection, but in reality, it is redirection. The absence of people is not the absence of purpose. When doors close and company disappears, it is because God is teaching you to stand on a foundation that no one else can shake. The voices that once guided you fade away so that you can learn the sound of his voice alone. You cannot discover divine clarity when you are still addicted to the applause of the crowd. That's why isolation becomes the very soil where your discernment begins to sharpen. In those hidden seasons, your weaknesses are exposed, but your strength is built. When you are surrounded by people, you can mask your struggles behind activity, laughter, or routine. But when you are alone, the truth rises. The thoughts you've ignored come to the surface. The fears you buried demand attention, and the doubts you hid now stare you in the face. It is painful, but it is also powerful, because what is revealed can now be healed. Isolation creates the opportunity for God to refine what has been left unattended. Isolation also breaks dependence on validation. As long as you have people clapping for you, it's easy to connect your worth to their affirmation. But in the silence, when no one is applauding, you are forced to recognize your identity apart from approval. This is not just a test, it is training. Because when your calling takes you higher, there will be moments when you must walk against the crowd, stand firm against popular opinion, and endure criticism for being faithful. If you don't learn to live without applause in private, you won't be able to withstand opposition in public. In the quietness of isolation, creativity and vision are also birthed. When you have no distractions pulling at your attention, your spirit becomes fertile ground for fresh ideas and new direction. Many of the greatest assignments are revealed in seasons of silence. It's not just about loneliness, it's about clarity. You begin to see with fresh eyes, dream with renewed courage, and plan with wisdom you didn't know you carried. What felt like emptiness actually becomes the space for expansion. There is also protection hidden in isolation. Sometimes you are pulled away from people not because they are bad, but because they are not meant to see what is being built in you. Every season is not for public display. Some anointings, some dreams, some callings must grow in private before they can be revealed. Just like a seed grows underground, your purpose requires a hidden season where roots deepen before fruit can appear. If it were exposed too soon, it could be destroyed. During isolation, intimacy with God becomes unavoidable. In the business of community, your prayers might be shallow, your focus divided, and your devotion half-hearted. But when you are alone, there is nowhere else to run but into His presence. Conversations with Him become longer. Worship becomes deeper. Dependence becomes stronger. Isolation is where He draws you close, reminding you that He is not just the God of the multitude, but the God who meets you one on one. Isolation also produces resilience. When you walk through the nights where no one understands and you endure the battles that no one else sees, you develop an inner strength that cannot be shaken by public storms. People who have never known solitude often crumble when support is stripped away. But those who have been trained in the hidden place know how to endure because they've already learned how to stand when no one is watching. Isolation forges warriors who cannot be broken by abandonment. Even in the silence, your spiritual authority is being built. What looks like stillness on the outside is warfare on the inside. You are learning how to pray when you don't feel strong, how to trust when you don't see answers, and how to keep moving when nothing seems to shift. These skills are not learned in comfort, but in the crucible of solitude. And when you emerge with a strength that was tested in the hidden place, a strength that cannot be faked or borrowed. Ultimately, isolation is not the absence of something, but the presence of a process. It is not about who left you, but about what is being formed in you. In that lonely place, God strips away what is unnecessary, heals what is broken, sharpens what is dull, and prepares what is called. Isolation is the training ground where warriors are made, where leaders are forged, and where chosen vessels are strengthened before being revealed to the world. There are moments when life takes a turn you never expected, and doors you believed were essential to your future suddenly slam shut. These are not just ordinary disappointments, but moments that shake you to your core, leaving you wondering why something so promising had to end. A relationship that felt secure, a job you believed was the key to your stability, an opportunity you thought was God's blessing. All of a sudden, it's gone. You knock, you push, you plead, but no matter how much effort you give, the door remains locked. At first glance, it feels cruel, but in reality, These shut doors are divine interventions, protecting you from paths that would have led to places you were never meant to settle. Every closed door challenges your faith in ways open ones never could. It is easy to trust when everything is working in your favor. But when rejection and denial meet you at the threshold, that is when you discover if your faith is built on feelings or foundation. A closed door forces you to choose between bitterness and belief. It invites you to lean on the unseen hand of God, who knows the beginning from the end. It is in these moments you realize that not all no's are punishments. Many of them are protection disguised as disappointment. The shutting of doors also tests your perception of control. We like to believe we are the architects of our own destiny, charting out the perfect steps to success. But when what you planned collapses, you are reminded that your steps are ordered, not orchestrated by human desire. That door you were desperate to walk through might have looked good on the outside, but only God knew the snares hidden on the inside. Closed doors strip away the illusion of control and bring you back into alignment with the truth that you are being led even when you cannot see the map. When doors close, your character is refined. It is in those seasons of delay and denial that patience is built, humility is developed, and resilience is tested. If every opportunity opened easily, arrogance would grow unchecked, and dependence on God would diminish. Closed doors remind you that strength is not found in what you can make happen, but in trusting what is unfolding. Waiting in front of a locked door develops a posture of surrender, teaching you that timing is as important as the destination. There is also revelation in rejection. Every closed door is not just about what you lost, but also about what you learned. Sometimes the very act of being denied access reveals the truth about people you thought were for you. It shows the motives of those who surrounded you, the fragility of the opportunities you idolized, and the areas where your trust was misplaced. A closed door often removes the veil, allowing you to see with clarity what was once clouded by desire. Closed doors can be painful, but they are often the clearest proof of divine guidance. The disappointment may sting, but it pushes you to places you would have never gone on your own. What looks like a setback often becomes the catalyst for redirection. The end of one path is the beginning of another. And though you may not understand the why in the moment, the closed door is always connected to a greater plan unfolding beyond your sight. These moments also refine your desires. Sometimes the closing of a door reveals that what you thought you wanted was not truly what you needed. It strips away the superficial longings, the shallow ambitions, and the temporary satisfactions, aligning your heart with something deeper. Through rejection, your hunger shifts from chasing good opportunities to waiting for God-ordained ones. Closed doors have a way of purifying your pursuit, ensuring that when the right door opens, you walk through it with gratitude and humility. Closed doors also cultivate endurance. When one after another seems to shut in your face, it builds within you a persistence that cannot be taught in success. You learn how to keep moving forward without guarantees, how to press on without clarity, and how to trust even when the evidence suggests otherwise. The warrior is not built when everything opens smoothly, but when everything seems locked and yet they keep walking by faith. Even in the silence of closed doors, divine provision is at work. What you perceive as loss is often the very thing saving you from destruction. A job you didn't get may have kept you from a toxic environment. A relationship that ended may have saved you from heartbreak that would have crippled your spirit. A business deal that fell apart may have preserved you from financial ruin. Closed doors are not the end of provision, but the redirection of it. And in time, every closed door becomes a testimony. What once felt like devastation becomes the proof of protection. What once left you broken becomes the foundation of unshakable trust. Looking back, you see that every denial was pointing you towards something greater. Every no was making room for a bigger yes, and every locked door was shaping you into someone who could handle the weight of the calling that was waiting on the other side. There is something different about carrying a fire that refuses to go out, a fire that burns deep inside your spirit, no matter what life throws your way. It is not the kind of passion that comes and goes depending on circumstances, nor is it the kind of motivation that fades when things get hard. This fire is relentless, an inner stirring that keeps you moving when everyone else has quit, a heat that will not let you stay silent when truth needs to be spoken, a flame that pulls you forward even when the weight of life presses down on you. You cannot explain it, but you know it is there, and no amount of opposition, doubt, or delay can extinguish it. This fire is not dependent on applause or recognition. Even when no one notices, when no one claps for you, and when no one seems to understand what you carry, the fire inside still burns. It is not fueled by external validation, but by something eternal, something divine that rests in the depths of your soul. You may have seasons of discouragement, moments of exhaustion, or times when the road feels endless. But the fire continues to glow, sometimes flickering, but never dying. It is proof that your life has been set apart for something greater than what the eyes can see. This kind of fire often sets you apart from others. While others can be satisfied with mediocrity, you cannot. While others can settle comfortably in compromise, something inside of you refuses to allow it. The fire makes you restless for more, hungry for something deeper, unwilling to accept the surface level when you know there is greater beneath. It burns through excuses, exposing every place where fear tries to hold you back. It pushes you out of comfort zones and into the unknown because staying still feels more unbearable than facing the risk of failure. When you carry this fire, you will often find yourself misunderstood. People may look at your intensity and think you are too much. They may question why you pursue things with such passion, why you keep fighting battles they would have walked away from, why you refuse to dim your light to make others comfortable. What they don't realize is that you cannot tone down what has been ignited within you. This fire was not lit by human hands, so it cannot be controlled by human opinions. It burns because it was placed there with purpose, and its fuel is not external, but eternal. The fire also gives you strength in places where others would give up. There are seasons where everything around you suggests you should quit, where obstacles tower above you and setbacks pile up like bricks on your shoulders. Yet somehow you keep going. Somehow you keep showing up. Somehow you keep believing when evidence is scarce. That fire inside of you won't let you stop. It whispers to you in the silence, reminding you that there is still more ahead, still purpose to be fulfilled, still ground to be taken. It becomes the reason you rise again when life knocks you down. This fire is also a refining force. Just like natural fire purifies gold, this inner flame refines your character. It burns away selfish motives, pride, and fear, leaving behind a strength and purity that only struggle could produce. It teaches you to persevere when nothing makes sense and to hold on to what is true when everything else feels uncertain. The fire doesn't just drive you, it shapes you. It molds you into someone who can handle the weight of the destiny that lies ahead. It also compels you to act when others hesitate, where others may shrink back in fear or wait for permission. This fire pushes you to step forward boldly. It gives you courage to face giants, strength to stand when standing is not popular, and endurance to keep building when the foundation seems fragile. It drives you to pursue vision when resources are lacking, to speak life when negativity surrounds you, and to keep pressing forward even when the pathway is unclear. This fire becomes both your fuel and your guide, pulling you toward divine purpose one step at a time. Carrying a fire that cannot be quenched often makes you a target. The enemy is not threatened by those who are passive, but when you burn with passion for your calling, resistance rises. Attacks come, distractions increase, and the weight of trials tries to suffocate what burns inside. Yet every attempt to extinguish it only proves its strength. Every storm you survive only causes the fire to blaze brighter, testifying that no amount of pressure can snuff out what has been divinely lit. This fire cannot be hidden. Even if you try to contain it, even if you attempt to blend in or quiet yourself, it always finds a way to break through. It shows up in your words, in your actions, in the way you carry yourself. People may not understand it, but they cannot ignore it. The fire within you becomes a light in dark places, a beacon for others who are searching for hope, a reminder that divine power is still at work in the world. It is not a fire meant to be concealed, but one meant to shine, to inspire, to awaken. Ultimately, the fire that cannot be quenched is proof that you are chosen, marked, and set apart for a greater assignment. It is the reason you cannot settle, cannot quit, cannot be content with living life at surface level. It is why you rise after every fall, why you press on when logic says stop, why you carry a strength that others can't explain. This fire burns not just for your sake, but for the sake of every purpose, every calling, and every destiny tied to your life. It will not go out because it was never meant to. One of the clearest signs that you carry something significant. Significant is when your identity comes under attack. It is not always your possessions, your finances, or even your opportunities that the enemy goes after first. It is who you are at the core. If he can distort the way you see yourself, he can weaken your confidence, cripple your faith, and make you second guess the calling on your life. That is why so often the arrows you face are aimed directly at your sense of worth, your value, and your place in this world. The enemy knows that if he can confuse your identity, he can derail your destiny. These attacks can come in many forms. Sometimes they show up through the words of others. People who try to label you with negativity, who remind you of your past mistakes, or who constantly question your abilities. Other times the attacks are internal, whispers of doubt that rise up in your own thoughts, convincing you that you are not enough, that you are disqualified, or that you do not belong where God has placed you. The battle over identity is subtle yet fierce, because it is designed to chip away at your confidence little by little until you stop believing in who you were created to be. When your identity is attacked, you may find yourself carrying insecurities you never had before. You begin to shrink in places where you once stood boldly. You second Guess decisions you used to make with clarity. You may even hesitate to pursue opportunities, fearing that you are not qualified or worthy. These battles can become heavy because they are not just external. They invade your inner world, reshaping the way you think and feel about yourself. That's why they are so dangerous, because the attack isn't simply against your circumstances. It's against your very sense of self. The enemy does not attack your identity without reason. He recognizes what you carry, even more than you sometimes do. He sees the potential, the anointing, the influence that rests on your life, and he knows that if you walk in full confidence of who you are, nothing will stop you. So, he tries to distort the mirror, making sure you don't see yourself clearly. He hopes you will walk around blind to your strength, unaware of your authority, and unsure of your purpose. Identity attacks are a strategic weapon designed to make you surrender power you already have. Often, these attacks intensify at moments when you are on the brink of breakthrough. Right before you step into new territory, you may feel the strongest resistance against who you are. Suddenly, past failures rise to the surface, reminding you of times you fell short. Voices around you may question why you think you deserve a seat at the table. Fear may creep in, convincing you that you don't belong in the places you are being elevated to. These are not coincidences. They are distractions meant to make you retreat before you rise. But even in the midst of identity attacks, something deeper begins to take place. You start to learn who you really are apart from people's opinions, apart from titles, apart from achievements. You begin to discover a strength that does not depend on applause, a sense of worth that cannot be taken away, and a confidence rooted in something unshakable. The attack, though painful, forces you to anchor yourself in truth, to stand firm in who you were always meant to be regardless of how others try to define you. As you endure these attacks, you also gain clarity about the lies that have been spoken over your life. You begin to recognize the patterns, how every time you rise, there is a voice that tries to pull you back down. How every time you dream, there is doubt that tries to choke the vision. By seeing the strategy, you can resist it. By exposing the lie, you can hold on to truth. Every attack reveals what the enemy fears most about you, and that becomes your confirmation of the very area where you are meant to walk in authority. There is also something powerful about realizing that your identity cannot truly be stolen. It can be attacked, it can be challenged, it can be distorted in your own eyes, but it cannot be erased. Who you are at the core remains intact, even when you are tempted to forget it. This is why so many battles come against identity, because it is the foundation of everything else. If the enemy cannot change who you are, he will at least try to convince you that you are less than who you truly are. But the truth is, your identity remains unshaken, even in the fire. These seasons of attack often strengthen you in ways you don't see at first. They teach you to rise above opinions, to silence inner doubts, and to stand in authority, even when you don't feel like it. They train you to walk with a deeper awareness of your value, not based on what you do, but on who you are. And once you've walked through identity attacks and discovered your true strength, you carry a new kind of confidence, one that no insult, no lie, and no weapon can take away from you. The attack against your identity is not proof of weakness, but proof of significance. It means there is something inside of you so powerful that the enemy feels threatened by it. It means your presence carries weight, your purpose carries influence, and your life carries meaning that cannot be erased. Every time your identity comes under fire, it is confirmation that you are carrying something worth fighting for, something the enemy cannot afford to let you see clearly. That is why identity attacks are often the loudest, because they point directly to the greatness that already exists within you. Sometimes the clearest sign that you carry something significant is when you begin to face opposition that makes absolutely no sense. It is not tied to anything you've done wrong, nor does it connect to anything logical. People turn against you without explanation. Opportunities close for no apparent reason, and resistance rises in places you never expected. The attacks are not always rational, but they are real, and they can leave you wondering why so much chaos seems to follow when all you are trying to do is walk in obedience. This type of opposition often points to the fact that you are moving in a direction that carries weight in the unseen realm. This opposition can manifest in relationships, where people you once trusted suddenly withdraw their support or even turn hostile without cause. Sometimes it shows up in the workplace, where every effort you make is met with unnecessary criticism or sabotage. Other times it reveals itself in circumstances that should have been smooth, but instead become filled with obstacles that seem deliberately placed in your path. It feels as though something is trying to block you, not because of who you are to others, but because of what you carry within you. The confusion of this kind of opposition lies in its lack of explanation. When you've done nothing to deserve it, when you've sown nothing but good and still reap resistance, it can be deeply discouraging. You start to question yourself, wondering if you've missed a step or if you've taken a wrong turn. But the truth is that senseless opposition is not about error. It is about assignment. What you are walking in carries such significance that the enemy tries to disrupt it before it fully matures. The irrational nature of the opposition is proof that it is spiritual, not just situational. Often, this opposition increases right before a major breakthrough. It is like turbulence before a plane reaches cruising altitude. Unexpected, unsettling, but also a sign that you are climbing higher. The resistance you feel is not meant to stop you, but to wear you down before you reach your destination. This is why so many people give up when they face battles that don't make sense, because the enemy knows that discouragement is often more effective than destruction. If he can convince you to quit on your own, he doesn't have to fight you any longer. But as strange as it may sound, senseless opposition can also serve as confirmation. It shows you that you are not walking in the ordinary. Ordinary paths rarely stir up extraordinary resistance. If nothing stood against you, it would mean you were not pushing against anything significant. The fact that opposition rises without reason is often a sign that you are disrupting something in the spiritual atmosphere, that your very presence threatens systems, patterns, or environments that were comfortable before you arrived. This type of opposition also exposes what is around you. When unexpected resistance rises, you begin to see who truly supports you and who does not. You recognize the environments that were never meant for you, the doors that were not aligned with your purpose, and the people who cannot handle the weight you carry. Though painful, this opposition refines your path, stripping away distractions and forcing you to lean into the places and people truly assigned to your journey. At the same time, These battles teach you resilience. When you keep standing in the face of attacks that don't make sense, you discover a strength you didn't know you had. You learn not to rely on applause or approval, but on something deeper. Every time you withstand resistance without caving, your endurance grows stronger. You become less shaken by circumstances, less moved by opinions, and more anchored in the certainty of your calling. There is also something revealing about how opposition comes when you are aligned with purpose. It shows you that your life is not small, that your impact is not unnoticed, and that your steps matter more than you sometimes realize. The enemy does not waste energy on those who pose no threat. If the attacks feel irrational, it is because they are tied to something larger than you, something that stretches beyond what you can currently see. That awareness shifts your perspective from discouragement to recognition. You are on a path that matters. The more illogical the resistance, the clearer it becomes that your fight is not against people or circumstances, but against forces that want to prevent your progress. This understanding protects your heart from bitterness because you realize it's not truly about the person who spoke against you or the door that closed on you. It's about an attempt to derail your focus. When you recognize that, you stop fighting in frustration and start standing with intention, knowing your endurance is part of the assignment. In the end, opposition that makes no sense is not proof that you are failing, but proof that you are advancing. It highlights the weight of what you carry and the power of what you're stepping into. It reveals that your path is one that challenges darkness, and that alone is reason enough for the resistance you feel. The opposition may be loud, but it is also confirmation that your life is aligned with something greater than yourself. Something that cannot be stopped no matter how much comes against it. Favor has a way of locating you in the very places where you least expect it. In environments where it seems you should be overlooked, disregarded, or even rejected. It does not follow the rules of human logic, nor does it bow to societal standards. Instead, favor shows up in unusual ways at unexpected times through people who may not even realize they are being used as vessels of blessing. When you carry a divine assignment, favor becomes a shield around you, ensuring that even in places of obscurity, your presence is recognized and opportunities open that others cannot explain. This kind of favor is not something you chase. It chases you. You could be in a place where no one knows your name, where your background should disqualify you, or where your presence should make no impact, yet somehow the doors swing open and people take notice. Others may wonder why you receive kindness when you have done nothing to earn it in their eyes, but what they fail to see is that favor is not earned, it is bestowed. It is a mark of divine covering that follows you into every setting, whether prestigious or humble. Often, favor appears in environments where opposition has already been stirred up. Just when it seems like resistance will have the final word, an unexpected source of support arises. Someone speaks on your behalf in a room you never entered. A resource shows up exactly when you need it most. A relationship is established with someone who carries the influence to open doors you could never open on your own. This is how favor operates. It bypasses natural barriers and uses unlikely vessels to push you forward. Favor also shows itself in timing. There are moments when everything seems delayed or denied, and then suddenly the right opportunity emerges at the exact moment you need it most. It doesn't arrive too early, leaving you unprepared, nor does it come too late, leaving you discouraged. Instead, favor finds its way into your timeline with perfect precision, aligning circumstances in ways you could never orchestrate yourself. This divine alignment reminds you that your path is not governed by chance, but by purpose. When favor finds you in unlikely places, it is often misunderstood by those around you. Some will question why you and not them. Others may become envious because they don't see the hidden preparation, the silent prayers, or the unseen struggles you've endured. They only see the blessing, the open doors, the opportunities, and they mistake favor for favoritism. But what they do not realize is that favor is not about who is more deserving. It is about divine orchestration for a greater purpose that stretches beyond personal gain. Favor also has a way of drawing provision out of unlikely sources. Just as water came from a rock in the wilderness, favor allows resources to flow from places considered barren. People who don't even know you may feel compelled to bless you, help you, or support your vision. Organizations or systems that should reject you suddenly grant you access. The very places where others say, "No one can rise here," become the very platforms where you are elevated. This cannot be explained by skill alone. It is the fingerprint of divine favor. One of the most powerful aspects of favor is that it is not limited to one sphere of life. It may show up in your career, opening opportunities for advancement that far surpass your qualifications. It may show up in relationships, connecting you with people who pour into your life at just the right moment. It may show up in your finances, where unexpected provision covers a need you couldn't meet on your own. Wherever it appears, favor reminds you that you are not walking this path by yourself, but under divine guidance. In many ways, favor in unlikely places becomes a testimony to those watching your life. It becomes undeniable evidence that something greater is at work. Even those who may not believe in your calling are forced to admit that something unusual surrounds you. They may not have the language to call it favor, but they recognize that doors open for you that remain closed for others. This visible distinction sets you apart, not for your glory, but so that others may see the power of what is working through you. The beauty of favor in unlikely places is that it not only elevates you, but also preserves you. In moments when you could have been destroyed, favor shields you. In circumstances where your voice should have been silenced, favor amplifies it. In environments where you should have been forgotten, favor ensures your name is remembered. This divine covering keeps you positioned in alignment with your destiny, even when everything around you seems designed to push you out of place. And perhaps the most humbling reality of this kind of favor is that it constantly reminds you that your success is not your own doing. You cannot take credit for doors you never had the key to, or for opportunities that found you when you weren't even searching. Favor humbles you, anchoring your heart in gratitude, because you know deep down that without it, you would still be stuck at the threshold of places you could never enter. It is this awareness that keeps you walking with humility, even as you move in environments where favor continues to chase you down. Would you like me to now write the closing words for this full speech? The hidden proof. You're walking in dangerous anointing. In that same fiery, Tony Evans style rhythm. I prefer this response, ChatGPT response, to there are moments in life when favor seems to show up in places that make no sense. It doesn't follow the natural order. It doesn't line up with logic. and it doesn't fit into the expectations of others. In fact, sometimes the very places where you are overlooked, dismissed, or even rejected become the same places where unexpected doors swing wide open. Favor doesn't always show up where you think it should. Often it appears in the least likely environments, in moments that leave you amazed at how things worked out on your behalf. It may be in a workplace where you feel invisible, yet somehow your name rises to the top when opportunities come. It could be in relationships where you thought there was no support, yet help arrives from the most unexpected sources. Sometimes it is in the wilderness seasons, when resources look scarce, that provision flows in ways you never imagined. Favor does not depend on surroundings, and it does not need perfect conditions to manifest. It shows up even in dry places, reminding you that your destiny is not tied to circumstances, but to divine alignment. The beauty of favor in unlikely places is that it removes all doubt that it was orchestrated by something greater than you. If you were qualified, connected, or positioned perfectly, people could credit your success to natural causes. But when you are lifted in an environment that should have buried you, when you are promoted where others expected you to be ignored, it becomes clear that favor is what carried you. It is undeniable evidence that what covers your life cannot be explained away by human reasoning. There is also a humbling effect to this kind of favor. You begin to realize that you do not need to chase people, manipulate circumstances, or force outcomes. Instead, you learn to walk in peace, trusting that the right opportunities will find you, even in the most unusual places. It teaches you that you are not sustained by systems, positions, or the approval of others, but by a hand that places you exactly where you are meant to be, regardless of how unlikely it looks. Sometimes favor shows up through people who don't even like you. There are stories of enemies who ended up becoming the very channels of blessing, people who spoke against you but ended up being used to open doors for you. That is the nature of favor. It does not ask for permission, and it cannot be stopped by hostility. Even those who stand against you can unknowingly play a role in your elevation, because favor has a way of turning opposition into opportunity. In other cases, favor finds you when you feel the least prepared. You may walk into a room doubting your qualifications, yet the decision makers see something in you that sets you apart. You may stumble into an opportunity that seems too great for you, yet somehow you thrive because favor has gone before you. These moments are not about your strength or perfection. They are about a covering that places you where you could not place yourself, and sustains you where you could not sustain yourself. Unlikely places of favor are also proving grounds. When blessings come in environments where no one expected them, it not only elevates you, but also magnifies the source behind it. Others are forced to acknowledge that something different surrounds your life. They may not be able to name it, but they cannot deny it. Your very presence in places you shouldn't be becomes a testimony not only to you, but to everyone watching. This kind of favor also shifts your perspective about lack and limitation. When you experience blessings in barren seasons, you realize that you are never truly without. Even in places that seem unlikely, provision can find you, opportunities can open, and promotion can come. This frees you from fear because you recognize that no environment is too small, too hostile, or too broken for favor to reach. You can walk boldly, knowing that what is meant for you will locate you no matter where you stand. Favor in unlikely places also creates gratitude that runs deep. It reminds you that nothing you have is by accident. Every door, every opportunity, every breakthrough becomes a reminder that you are sustained by grace, not by chance. It shapes your character because you learn not to boast in your ability, but to remain grounded, knowing that favor is what placed you there. Gratitude keeps you anchored when elevation comes, so that pride never robs you of what favor has given. And finally, when favor continues to find you in places you least expect, it builds a confidence that is not rooted in arrogance, but in assurance. You begin to trust that no matter where life takes you, no matter how unlikely the setting, what is meant for you cannot be withheld. You carry the quiet certainty that your steps are ordered, that even in the most unexpected places, blessings will locate you, and that what is assigned to you will find you right on time. I prefer this responsive. You see these signs in your life. Don't shrink back. Don't apologize for the anointing you carry. Don't mistake the attacks for abandonment or the isolation for rejection. You are walking in a dangerous anointing, and that is why the fight is so fierce. But it is also why your destiny is so unstoppable. The oil on your life was not given to you by man, and man cannot take it away. Stand firm, stay faithful, and remember, the very evidence of your struggle is the hidden proof of your anointing.